All right, everybody, welcome back to the What Worked For Me podcast. Today we have Cherlyn, who has successfully lost right around 80 pounds and feels better than ever. We're really excited to get started. Cherlyn, is there anything else you'd like to introduce yourself with before we get going?
Um, Sometimes I'm called Coach C.
Perfect.
Yeah,
We can see
other
you
than that,
clearly
no,
have a gym in the background.
I do.
Way awesome stuff. It's great when things become part of your life after these big transformations.
Absolutely.
So we talked briefly before this. You said you got up right around 220 pounds, right? 219-ish was what your high was. Before we
Yes.
get into the weight loss, how did you find yourself at 220 pounds and realizing I need to change?
So I'm a mom of five, and I was pregnant every 5 years for the time I turned 17 on. And, the weight just accumulated. And I was one of those moms that was always mentally active, like in my mind, but my body was not, quite as active because I had put on a lot of weight. And, my kids always wanted to do things. And I found myself not being in a lot of pictures and things like that. We went to the lake one day and I I finally got into some pictures with my son and I came home and um it still makes me want to cry because the pictures were so just like they just spoke to me, and it was like, oh my gosh, I didn't recognize who I felt like I was, in my mind, as opposed to what I was seeing, in the photograph. And I had to really do a lot of soul searching that day. And, I began to believe that I'm better than this. And, there was some things that I needed to work on. And, uh, you know, it's crazy, but the next day I got up and it was like I had this surge of energy. And, I went outside and I brought my kids outside and they were probably about maybe 7 and 9. And this is mom that never did anything, couch to get up and go do something. And, I just began to run up and down my driveway. And my kids are like, what is wrong with you? I didn't know you could run, mom, and
Kids
and
have
I was
no
fast.
mercy. They're the most honest critics there ever
They are.
there
And
ever is.
it was crazy because, but, I ended up losing 10 pounds just doing that. And I was feeling a little bit motivated, that picture was just stuck in the back of my mind. So that's kind of how I got started. And, do you want me to go on or do you?
Yeah, I mean, we can keep kind of unpacking it. So far, we've got to the point that you lost that first 10 pounds just by running. Did
Mhm.
you start implementing nutrition at any point along the way?
So the next thing that happened was I was on Facebook one day and I got a I don't know, a little ad for the local CrossFit. They were doing a 6-week challenge. And I saw it and I was like, maybe I'll do this. And, I was kind of scared to death and I've never done anything like that. And I ended up reaching out to them and I took my place there. And at that point, I was 210 pounds and, I was thrown into CrossFit and, it's supposed to be a beginner's type. I don't know if you ever done CrossFit, but really, is there a beginner's CrossFit?
No, no, there's not.
Yes.
Like they're
Thank
all
you.
they're all very,
Thank
very
you.
advanced movements.
Yes.
So,
But I was motivated, so I didn't really mind. And, I did the 6-week challenge and I ended up losing like 32 inches all over my body. And I
awesome.
was like, wow, wow. I couldn't believe I did that. It was the middle of summer. I started in May. I'm in Texas, so it was extremely hot here. And I did my first CrossFit comp in like June or July. And I was watching these girls, and these girls they were amazing.
Athletic.
Yes, and they're over there lifting. It was 155-pound deadlifts, and you had to lift it 50 times, and then whatever else it was. But I was like, I'm doing that. I just told myself, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do them unbroken. I'm going to do it. I've been doing CrossFit for like 2 months, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I did it. I did it. So it was like, I couldn't believe I did it. And I was so impressed. And so, because I mean, I was strong. I mean, I had a lot of kids, I did a lot of things. And so,
Right.
so anyway, it just kind of spiraled from there. And I didn't really do any nutrition stuff until I want to say I was about 6 or 7 months in. And I didn't want to take on a lot of extra things because I knew that, the condition that my body was in and, just getting myself to the gym every day and being accountable, that was enough for me. And I realized one day, and I tell all my people, I, your body will tell you whenever you need something, and it'll tell you whenever you need to make a change. And I just remember the lack of energy that I had. And I thought to myself, and I had some really good coaches at that time, and they were like, "Well, Cherlyn, you need to eat," because the first thing I tried was starving myself. I didn't want to eat, and I had a lot of weight to lose, and I just wanted to,
Go as
I
fast
came
as
from the
possible.
couch. I had no skills. I had no, I didn't know anything. And so I did. I starved myself. And, I remember one day I was doing wall balls and, I threw the ball up, the ball came down, and so did I. I mean, we fell on the floor like I had nothing. And so it was that day that I recognized, okay, you need to eat. So we need to figure this out. And, you know, CrossFit coaches are great, but some of them don't have a lot of nutrition skills. And so it was really difficult for me because I had to do a lot of research and I had to learn a lot of things. And so I started doing all these different diets. I started with keto. I lost 10 pounds on keto. And then I did 3 Whole30s. I did 275 hards. I did all these things. And, I lost weight and I got stronger over time doing all of them. But, my body just, I don't know, it just worked for me, I thought. But probably about 9 months, I think it took me to lose. It took me, I don't know, I was probably about maybe 175 then. And
So about 40 pounds, 50 pounds ish
yes.
in nine
And
months. And that was across a variety of different dietary strategies. What
yes,
what caused you to go from one to the other? Like when you said you started in keto, what made you
just not
switch to
knowing. I didn't
just
know.
trying something new?
Yeah, I think when you're like new to things and you're getting results and you don't really have anybody teaching you and you're like, oh, like you said, so and so is doing this and it worked for them. I'm going to try that, and you do try it and it does work for you somewhat. And then you try something different because you're like, okay, so I'm kind of plateaued and, I think I need to change something, which,
And was
hindsight.
those plateaus in weight or in training? It sounds like the first one was more training motivated, where you're like,
So it was more weight for me because I was one of those people that was really, really, really motivated by the scale. I would wake
okay,
up and I would look at the scale and I would be like, I didn't lose, or,
right.
oh yes, I did. I got, I'm 1 pound down. And I was very, very focused because I didn't know my training was actually building my muscle, which was, weighs more than fat and blah, blah, blah. But,
Yep.
just not knowing, the knowledge just wasn't there. And
So with nutrition, it sounds like you tried a bunch of things and that got you about halfway through your
mhm,
journey. I assume at a certain point you kind of started settling into you know what works for you a little bit better long term. What was that
yes.
process like? How did you get, because I don't think the trying everything is a bad thing. I think people should go out and try as many different strategies as they can. How are
Mhm.
you able to identify the things that work the best for you and then continue on to get your goals?
So initially, I just decided that I needed to chill out. And I
Okay.
just said, I was like, okay, we need to just trust the process and, clean eat. And I learned the basic things about the grocery store, how, you don't eat things that are fresh, things that, go bad in a couple of days, things like that. And, I kind of knew some of that stuff, but I never really put it into play for myself. And I just really focused on my training at that point. I was training probably like 6 days a week. And I just I just felt okay, what I
Mhm.
was doing just felt right. But I also was stagnant for, I don't know, probably about a year, probably about 160. And
Let's
then I
talk about
started,
that for a second, because that can be really hard for
it
some
is
people,
hard.
especially if you're really motivated by the scale.
Yes.
How did you psychologically get through that? Because I know sometimes you can be feeling better and everything's going better, but if the scale's not moving, it can stress you out. So how did you switch and kind of chill that out and move on to maybe a more holistic approach from what it sounds like?
So I was always one that, posted a lot of things on Facebook about, my journey. And, I had some friends and they were they comment and do the things. And I had one friend that was just like, Cherlyn, you need to throw your scale away. Like, get real with yourself and you need to just get rid of your scale. Because it was kind of an obsession for me, and it was like
Right.
it hindered my mood. It I don't know how I'm gonna act today because I didn't lose any weight, it was kind of
Right.
weird. But um, you know, just stepping away from it and trying to like not put it in places where I could see it in the morning. That way I didn't step on it, you know what I mean? And
Yep.
psychologically, I didn't want it to have that power over me. And so I did. I began to realize, I don't need that. There's other things that are happening. I need to start focusing on my own health. I had to start telling myself, okay, well, maybe you didn't lose weight today, but you did go out and do, 50 power cleans, at 105 pounds.
Yeah.
Or I started trying to transfer that thought process and make it more positive, I guess.
That makes sense. Just focus on other things. So for you, the easiest way to get your mind off the plateaus, you just got rid of the scale in general. Just I'm not
Yeah.
even going to worry about it. I'm just going to start
Yes.
focusing on other things. So you're at a plateau at 160 pounds. You're starting to break away from worrying so much about the scale, but it sounds like you still drop an additional, 30-ish pounds after that. What were the things that helped you finally get past that plateau and start uh, leaning out and losing weight?
So I won't mention the names, but I started doing some programs outside of the gym that I was at. And I got very involved with doing a lot of challenges and things on top of what I was already doing. And I really started focusing on my nutrition. Like, I started to meal prep, which is something I had never done. I started weighing my food. I started taking my food with me everywhere I went. And then that became my new obsession because, now I'm like, kayaking and I'm eating celery, on my kayak, and I've got my little thing with me,
Right.
and people were inviting me to dinner and I'm bringing my own dinner with me. And, I got super intense with it. But, that's what I had to do because, for me, it was so important that I met my goals that I set for myself, and they weren't large goals at that time. They were, let's lose 5 pounds or let's, this or that. And I just began to just goal after goal after goal and just did it, and stayed focused doing it.
Right. It sounds like eventually you probably got away from that level of um, like focus on food or your food items.
Yes.
And that's something I've noticed that sometimes people go a little bit too far and they realize they've gone too far and they come back. What were you able to do to normalize your relationship with food in the long term so you weren't so obsessed over it? Because that can be a dangerous aspect as well.
It is very much so. So my relationship with with food was very unhealthy. Obviously, in the earlier years, I probably lived off Twinkies and whatever. But when I learned that my body was a machine, because that's what I
Hmm.
told myself, and it's the funniest thing because I'm like, oh my gosh, I have an 8-cylinder car, right? It's a Camaro. It's really fast. It's 455 horsepower.
Awesome.
And I do not put anything but high octane gas in that car so that it runs on all 8 cylinders, right? So I've
Right.
always been one that's been like, okay, well, would I do that for myself? Would I put trash in my body so that I run off, 2 cylinders instead of eight? And, I began to tell myself that, food is fuel, and anything that I put in my mouth has to have some kind of reason. It has to do something good for my body. And so that was my thought process to kind of
And that
move
and
forward.
so just by focusing more on how you felt, that's how you got away from maybe some of the more extreme eating behaviors. So that brought you all the way to your lowest, right? So you're about 80 pounds down. Um, and then you had mentioned before when we were talking that you ended up getting some cosmetic surgery.
I
How,
did. Mhm.
let's talk about that real quick and how that came to be.
So about a year and a half into my journey, I had lost, like I said, the 50 pounds, 40 or 50 pounds. And it's still like half a child. And, having 5 children, I already had skin issues and, losing the weight um, progressed that. I mean, just made it worse. And after I had lost the first part of it, I was super excited that I lost the weight and it was great and I felt great. But it just kind of, for me, turned into another issue, so to speak, because I went from looking in the mirror seeing, this heavy person to now this semi thinner person with all this excessive skin. And, mentally for me, it was, I won't say it was worse than, but it was as bad for my self esteem
Steam.
as, just being heavy in general. And I couldn't believe, looking in the mirror and nobody told me, that that was going to happen. And, I was like, I can't live like this. I mean, I can, but I
Want
worked so
to.
hard, and it was like, um, it just wasn't okay. I mean, it was like having the rug pulled right from underneath you. And anyway, so I ended up having a tummy tuck, and I had my breasts done because 5 children, you can imagine.
Right.
So
Hmm.
um, that was the very first time. I think I took 4 weeks off for that. And I remember coming back to the gym, right at my 4 weeks because I was still so motivated. I didn't want to take the time off, but I was like, I got to get back. I got to get back.
Right.
And so I did. I
How
came
was your
back and
recovery? Because I've been familiar with people who've gotten skin
it's
removal and
that's a
it's
tough
not easy.
surgery.
It's a
Yeah.
rough recovery road.
Ugh, I couldn't even stand up for like 3 weeks. And I was like, four
How was your
weeks,
first
ready
day
to go.
back? I take it it wasn't straight into
It was so
full
bad because,
speed.
well, my coach, for me in my mind, it was full speed, but I went back and I was like, okay, coach, what am I going to do? And he was like, why are you here? And I was like, I got to do something. I'm going crazy. And he was like, okay, we'll get on the bike. He says, do 100 calories. And I was like, what? I don't want to do 100 calories on the bike ever. Like,
Yeah.
never, not even when I feel good, But he just looked at me and I was like, okay. So that's what I did. I sat there and rode the bike the whole time, that everybody was working out. But I was at least able to get back into the gym, fairly quick. And
So
so
after the surgery, it took you about 4 weeks to just get back to doing steady state cardio, is what it sounds like. How long did it take you to get back to like your previous training level?
so 12 weeks I was released to lift some things. Um I want to say about 20 weeks, 18, 20 weeks.
Okay.
Because, yeah, I mean, it's a pretty large incision. So, we don't want anything to
Rip.
come apart. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was, it was hard. That's, I think for me was some of the hardest things that I ever had, done was, taking that time off and then having to bounce back from that because, you're off and you're sitting around and you're trying to control your diet. And, I had a weight issue. So, I had some kind of eating disorder that I'm in my mind trying to fight and, sitting at home and, you're swollen and things are happening to you and your mind is like, oh, well, have a donut or, whatever, and it'll make you feel better because it's comfort eating. And so I really struggle with that. And that's part of the reason why I was so intent on, getting back in the gym, because even if I was in the gym and not doing anything, I still was able to like feel somewhat normal and feel like I'm still part of that. And
And the community is huge. That's one of
yeah, it was
the best
super
parts about
important.
like the smaller gyms are the community is massive in them.
Yes.
So you did bring something up that I thought was interesting is you said that like the donut would be like a stress relief, right? I know
Mhm.
for many people exercise is a stress relief. So in those 4 weeks where you couldn't exercise, what what strategies did you use to mitigate stress and not turn back to food? Because that's what I feel like most people do in those situations.
Well, I was a bad client. So at 2 weeks, at 2.5 weeks, because the first couple of weeks you're kind of laid back and you're kind of medicated and you know the things. And probably about week three, I started walking and I just kind of a little bit at a time, getting up and getting out and being outside and I wasn't really clear to do that until 4 weeks, but
How dare you?
yeah, but it was really difficult, but fighting that that was probably the easiest one for me to get through as far as the food goes because I was pretty motivated back then. But now when I had my surgery last year for my arms, which
Was that a
that was
separate surgery? You didn't do those all at the same time?
no, no, no. So I had my
Okay.
arms done last year because the weight I lost had gotten down to like 140 pounds and it was pretty significant. But that one was a lot harder. That one was difficult for me.
Was it worse or easier going into the second one? Like because you knew it was probably going to happen, but
Yeah, I mean, I went into it, and that's when I began to ruck back at around that time. I'd been rucking for a couple of years, and you know, I I had rucked so much and ran so much that I'd gotten so thin, which is what created the loose skin, and I just
and just for
continued to
some of
do
our
it.
listeners, rucking is just running or walking with a
Yes,
weighted backpack or weighted vest. I'm a huge fan of it.
yes, I
It's
love it.
great.
I love it. So, I thought since I'm already down, to whatever weight I was at, um, and I know I'm going to have this surgery done because I have this excessive skin, then I'm going to continue to do that until I'm like so thin that when they do my surgery, and this was my thought process, that they can get me as tight as they can get me, right? And
Right.
I was pretty stacked. Like I had a lot of muscle and I just burn all of it off. Like I went from this to this little arms. And so anyway, I went into it thinking, it'll be quick. I can come back out of it and get back at it. No big deal, right? Well, it didn't work that way. I ended up tearing my Achilles and not tearing it, but I don't know. I had some issue with it. I sprained something, and anyway, I couldn't ruck. So that took my
Your
my
training
my
favorite.
training a whole different level because now I'm stuck because I can't walk. So and then I got COVID, and I ended up getting long COVID, which created a heart issue with me, which is it's put me off like 18 months instead of 8 weeks. And all this
Right.
happened at one time, and it just set me down. Like I couldn't do anything. And I had to deal with the heart issue with the doctor and all that. And I still struggle with that problem. I still get really bad elevated heart rate. But I've been training for, I think, about a year now. And I ended up gaining back like 18 pounds. And that was pretty devastating for me because I was in the best shape of my life before I did it, and I was I struggled like, and I think once you start losing that mindset of, okay, well, I can't walk, I can't train, I'm still coaching here, and I have to be that person, and I'm not motivated, like
Right.
I'm not feeling it, and I still have to pick myself up every morning and, try to be a positive, influence on people. And I was
Right.
struggling with that. And, I got depressed, and I began to eat to comfort myself. I didn't eat Twinkies, but I ate a lot of stuff. And so I
Right.
gained the weight, and it was like this spiral, I felt myself, like the mental strength that I had built up just slowly fade away over that time. And the day I went to the cardiologist and he told me what was going on with my heart, and I was just like, that was it. Like that was the last
Right.
straw for me, and he's telling me that I can't train, I need to slow down. And I'm like, you know, what do you do? And so, anyway, I got through that. And of course, I didn't listen to him, and trained anyway. But, and I don't recommend
Hopefully
that to
everything was
people.
safe.
It was safe. I had parameters, so I
Right.
did it the right way. But, um, yeah, it was really difficult coming back from that. And,
What kept you going in those times? I think this is a very important thing to highlight is after weight loss, your body is going to want to go back to your previous weight, no matter how you
yes,
do it. Like hormonally, chemically, by behavior, everything is going to want to be driving you back to that
yes.
previous weight. And a lot of times what can happen is a bunch of stress or tragedy or injury can all of a sudden make you go back there. As much as you did have some regain, which is totally normal after any weight loss, what kept you going and then where helped you get through kind of that darkest time to a place where you're able to manage it better now?
So I carry this belt, and I keep it in my backpack. I know, right? And it's from when I weighed 220 pounds. And I'm hard on myself. Like, I'm like, get up and do it. You don't need to be sitting around. I don't have a lot of sympathy for me. I have sympathy
Mhm.
for other people, just not myself. And I'm probably a little much for a lot of people, but I saw that belt, and I just got mad. Like, I got mad. I got mad about what the doctor told me. I got mad about, like, I have people that look up to me, and
Mhm.
I was not like living up to my own expectations. And I remember it was cold last year, probably October or November. Does it get cold in Texas? I don't know. But a couple of my
Relatively.
right, a couple of my clients were, here, and really good friends of mine, and they're working out. They were always my workout partners. And I just said to them, I said, you know what? I said, come this specific date, and I can't remember the exact date right off my top of my head. I said, I'm going to change. This is going to be different. Like, I'm going to do what I need to do. And I slowly, by myself, I didn't even do it in the gym. Like, I slowly went out and I began rucking, and, I started doing all these things. And I started setting challenges for myself again, because I knew what I needed to do. It was just a matter of getting my mind in the
Yeah.
game. And I had to build that mental capacity back up. And I didn't want anybody to see me. It was embarrassing. I've never been like as humiliated in my life. Like even when I was heavy, like now here I am, I'm in the gym and I'm like this person that's supposed to be, fit and, doing the things, being motivated. And I feel like, I feel like, and I don't use the word can't, but I felt like I can't. And
Yeah.
I don't like that feeling. And, for me, I had to sit down and have some serious talks with myself, and they weren't nice. And, like I said, I started to move every day. I moved more. I moved more. And, you know, here I am now. I've trained most of my heart issue out. So I couldn't even walk 5 steps without my heart beating up to like 220 beats. Like that's how
Wow.
bad I was. And so now, I mean, I'm in here. It still gets up in the 200, actually about 180 now. And but
Which is
I'm
normal. That's normal
yeah,
for like a
yeah,
higher heart rate. There's a
yeah,
big jump between 200s and 180.
absolutely. And I'm rucking with a 40-pound pack, and I'm running with it sometimes. And so I spent a lot of time doing the things that I didn't want to do because it was uncomfortable for me to start back. Like I was in a lot of pain. And I don't know if you've done CrossFit and things like that. It's painful when you start. Like it
Right.
hurts. Your
High
body hurts.
impact and it's high intensity,
Yes.
so
Yes.
when you've done it.
And I'm not young anymore, and and coming in here in my own place, and there's people that are stronger than me now, and I'm like, how does this happen? Like I trained you from being off the couch, and now you can lift heavier than me. And so,
Yeah.
I'm a little competitive like
Competitive.
that, so
Slightly.
a little bit. So now, I have to make them chase me, and I have to keep them motivated. So it's good.
So you kind of come out of that low. Um, Altogether, we're looking at least what, 3 or 4 years since your high. How long has it been since you were at your heaviest weight?
So I started in 2016. So that
Okay,
was
so it's
when,
been almost 10 years.
yeah. So we've been this little roller coaster, all along.
So it's been, we'll say 8, 10 years, multiple surgeries, lots of health
hmm
variabilities going back and forth. During this time period, what do you feel like some of your biggest mistakes were that you just had to learn from to get the information you needed?
Well, so I don't, I don't, I don't know that they were mistakes or learning curves. I like to look at it like that. But
Okay.
um, coming from where I came from, and not having any knowledge at all, I don't know that there was anything that I could have done different, other than, because I mean, I didn't know how to teach myself a movement. I didn't know anything about no nutrition. Educated, I did as best I could. Maybe see a nutritionist, or you know, I, I don't know. I just maybe stick with the plan and trust the process a little bit better. I think is a good tool.
Yeah, just kind of trust that good things are happening. So looking forward, what are you doing to try to ensure you don't end up, with regain or some of those negative aspects that are going to be pretty common for most people?
You mean as far as nutrition?
Just anything, right? Like so when you think about, obviously you carry on that belt, right? So
Yes.
you're consciously thinking like I don't want to go back to this.
Yes.
So when you're looking, 5 years down the road or 10 years down the road, what's your plan to make sure like you stay healthy and that you make sure you can continue to do all the things that you love?
So I always I always look back on my why I started, which will be that picture, and I carry that picture with me as well. And just staying active, it doesn't have to be CrossFit, it doesn't have to be anything. I mean, I think, getting your steps in during the day, and, just eating a healthy, balanced diet is super important for, most people. And for me, my plan is to not get hurt, and not get in that stagnant state again because yeah, I think that
It's hard. It's harder
that's
to do it
difficult.
when you
Well, I
can't
had
move.
surgery on both my shoulders too, so I mean that didn't help my cause. And I think
Was that during that same time
yeah,
period
well,
with like,
this one I just had done during the COVID and the arm surgery. All of that happened at once. So that hindered me too because I couldn't do upper body when I couldn't walk,
right,
and I was in a pretty bad predicament. But I think just staying with my age, I'm not ready to go out and do the whole go crazy CrossFit, lift super heavy again, just kind of just go with what I can do
hmm
and, be the best that I can be in those areas now. I'm not as competitive. Well, I am competitive, but I'm not out to like keep up with the 20-year-olds anymore. You know what I mean? I want to kind of look at life in more of a, hey, you need your shoulders, you need your knees. So
right.
calm down. And, later on in life, you'll have those things so that you can function as a elderly person and, thinking different, I think is the better
Right.
way.
That's a really good point, and I'd like to dive into that. Is a lot of times to lose a good amount of weight or have a health change, you have to do a couple extreme things, which is not good long term.
Mhm.
It can almost be detrimental long term. So how are you able to make that shift to, okay, maybe instead of trying to compete in CrossFit and, you know, risk injury and do all those things, I can use it as a tool. How did you make that mental shift that you could step away from the hyper competitive side and just use it as a way of staying healthy?
So this was hard for me because in my mind, I'm still 30. Okay. So when since the very first day I started doing my workouts and I have not slowed down. Like I get into a workout and I am going and I'm lifting as heavy as I can. In my mind, that's what I need to be doing. The injuries really opened my eyes up a little bit because there's just there's a better way. You know what I mean? There's no reason for me to do that. Like, and I'm not saying don't do it if that's what you want to do, but for me, and when the doctor told me, Cherlyn, when I had this shoulder done, he said this one's going to go quickly because I had both of them looked at. And it, it was like one of those things where he said, if I have to go in again, you're going to have complete replacement. And at that time, I was like pretty devastated because I like to lift overhead a lot. And, I had to really let that sink in for a while because I also need to brush my hair and I also need to, pick things up and all the stuff. And so I think coming back from this last time off, I just decided that I'm gonna slow down and I'm gonna just do the things that are gonna keep me healthy and um, you know still let me live life the way that I want to. I haven't achieved all the goals that I would like to have done. I'm lifting a lot more than I'm doing CrossFit now, which is part of my plan, and that seems to be a little bit easier on my body. And you know, as far as bone density and things like that, I think it's important that that's where I need
Right.
to be for help.
hmm
And, it's kind of what I'm going to do.
I really like a lot of what you just said there. We'll kind of get things wrapped up here. One of the last things I always like to talk about is if you could, you know, talk to yourself at the very beginning of this journey, or maybe somebody else, one of our listeners who's just about to start trying to take control of their life, what would be that one piece of advice that you'd give them?
So I think it's important that you look at a weight loss journey as a health journey instead of, I mean, a lot of people go into it as aesthetics and things like that, and that's fine if that's, your thought process. But overall, I think in general that the main thing is to make sure you're healthy. And don't take on too much at once. Like do things that's in a slow process. And um, I feel like when people come in and they have a lot going on, and sometimes they'll be like, okay, I want to lose weight, I'm going to go on my diet, I'm going to do all these things, and it's a handful of stuff, and they're very motivated, but in reality it's a lot to take in. So if you slow down and just set yourself some small goals, and take those things up one at a time, and just kind of move forward with the process, and trust that it's working, I think you'll do better overall.
I think that's beautifully said. I think we'll wrap it up there if you don't have anything else to say. Once again, Sherilyn, it was great to have you on, and hopefully our listeners will benefit from your story. Thank you for sharing, and we'll just stop there.
Thank you.